Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our very first Empowered Pause, which is going to be a little different from the way they regularly are as we are launching, and we are so excited. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm here with some wonderful, powerful humans who I'm going to introduce in a minute. But first, I'm just going to start off by letting you know what we have in store tonight. Tonight is one part panel discussion, one part empowered pause, and one part fundraiser. As you know, for those of you who follow Speak Initiative, we launched earlier this year, and it was quite exciting. And now we're doing some fundraising so that we can continue to do the work that we want to do in the community. So, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's going to be really exciting. Before we continue, I want to just share with you guys why we are fundraising tonight. We are trying to raise $25,000, which is a lot, but Speak, unlike a lot of other really amazing nonprofits, a lot of times they have an endowment or something like that. That is not what's going on with Speak. Speak just decided that we had to do some work in the community, and so we need some help, guys. And so we're raising 25K. That's our goal, and for with that goal, we are doing supplies, operations, part-time help, and then what we're calling right now the Support Right Now Fund, which is an emergency support fund for speakers. Those are people who have suicide ideation. So anything that they might need, support, rent money, anything like that, we're going to be able to help them out. So it's going to be really great. And that's what we're raising money for. So we hope you will give. You can give right now, tax deductible donation at speaksuicideprevention.org. We are a registered nonprofit, 501c3. So we'll be taking your donations all night. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our amazing team that we have here. First and foremost, I want to introduce Miss Rachel Chenoa J, who is the founder and thought leader and genius and queen behind the Speak Initiative. Welcome, Rachel. Thank you
Thank you so
so
much.
much for being here and launching this amazing, amazing program. Also, I want to recognize Miss Deneen Davis, who is the Director of Program and Community Engagement for Speak. She is also the Communications and Ministry Coordinator at Fort Washington Community Church. Welcome, Deneen Davis. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have the absolutely powerful and amazing Reverend Kendra Frazier, creator and founder of Kind Consulting, therapist extraordinaire, and she just has such an incredible brain, and I can't wait to pick it tonight. Kendra, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Um, and welcome everyone who's out there. Excuse me. Feel free to leave your questions and comments on the chat, and we will go ahead and post them. If you have any questions for any of us, let us know. But we're going to jump right in with questions. The first question I have is actually going to be for Rachel. And Rachel, I just want you to talk a little bit about the Empowered Pause, this program.
Sure. Can you hear me? Just want to make sure.
I can hear you well, yes.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for being here tonight. And so let's talk about the empowered pause for a moment. The empowered pause is just what it sounds like. It's a 10 to 15-minute pause that we will take weekly live on Facebook and just get into what's going on for the week. How how you're feeling. Take a moment to gather, to connect, to stop, and to recharge. It's not going to be a positive week all the time. Sometimes we might need to stop, take a breath, recalibrate, and see what else we need to do different. So it's just a space for our speakers to actually feel comfortable and for our listeners or our community to find space where we can actually support each other.
Thank you, Rachel. That's amazing. Super appreciate you sharing that with us. And Deneen, if you could take a moment and just share with us some of the other programs and engagement opportunities we have for Speak.
Hi. So we want to develop creative ways to actually engage with people who are dealing with crisis. And everything that we do may not look like a typical therapy session where you're speaking, although it's speak is the acronym, but we want to have creative ways that people can come and just engage and let loose. That might look like dance therapy, that might look like poetry writing or movement or simply hugging someone or kind gestures, but we want to use creative ways for people to actually engage in releasing that tension, that stress, and dealing with their traumas. And so those are some of the type of programmings that we're developing.
Thank you, Deneen, for sharing. Awesome. So we're gonna get a little bit more into depth about what we're talking about. Speak Suicide Prevention obviously is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing the rates of suicide amongst the Black community, the BIPOC community. And so, Kendra, I just wanted to get your professional opinion. What is the state of our community as it pertains to mental health and suicide? I know that's a broad question,
Ooh,
but
ooh.
what do you feel? Basically, do you feel like a program or a company like a nonprofit like Speak is necessary?
I absolutely, hands down, believe that a nonprofit like Speak is necessary. I want to give a shout out to Rachel again for her vision in creating, curating, manifesting Speak, because it is absolutely necessary. I want to say what's up to Mika, who has joined on. She's the only one I can see in the chat. She asked, "Where do I send the money?" Which is an important question as we are raising
I'm
$25,000
responding right now.
tonight. And so Kathleen is going to put that up, Mika, so you can know. But wherever you are, and I want you all to join me in saying 46,000. say 46,000 so I can hear
46,000.
46,000.
46,000.
According to the CDC in 2020, there were 46,000 completed suicides in the United States. 12.2 million is another number. Say 12.2 million.
12.2.
12.2 million.
It's a big number. 12.2 million in 2020. It was estimated that 12.2 million adults seriously thought about suicide. That's a lot of people. 3.2 million made a plan, and 1.2 million attempted suicide. And in comparison to suicide in 20, I believe 2000, 20 years later, our suicide completion rate is 30% higher. And so these statistics come from the Center for Disease Control, and it points to the fact that we are the most vulnerable that we've ever been in our world, and how there are organizations like Speak who are meeting the gap, particularly because it's so challenging for people to access mental health resources. It's challenging for people to access therapists. It's challenging for people to find the resources to be able to take care of their mental wellness because they're looking for work right now. So an organization like Speak is doing the work that a clinician like myself may not be able to access with people, or an institution may not be able to access, just because of people not being able to pay for services. And so I really, really believe in Speak and the work that Speak is doing, in the care that they're giving to the folks that have already been able to tap into the services that you offer, and creating a safe space for people to come and just be listened to from people that look like them. I know that suicide completion rates are continuing to increase, particularly among African-American boys ages 10 to 14. So an organization like Speak again meets the gap in being able to support young people who are at the threshold of considering ending their lives, and really inspiring them to believe that they matter and that they are of value. And so I'm grateful for Speak being present.
Thank you, Kendra. I did not know those numbers. Woo, that's heavy, man. That's heavy, and there's so many different people. I mean, yourself and so many different people trying to do a focus on mental health right now, and we still are behind in terms of we're still not meeting all that we need to do. So we have a lot of work to do. If you're just joining us right now, we are tonight, we are launching the Empowered Pause, which is a safe space for you to come and connect and weekly and weekly connect at 7:15 every week on Wednesdays. Come and connect and talk and share, and just kind of a safe space for you to be yourself. We're launching that. We're also raising $25,000 tonight. You can make those donations at speaksuicideprevention.org. Let me jump to a different topic. It's Pride Month. Happy Pride to everyone. I love Pride Month. Pride is so much fun. um and this is, I guess, a question for the whole floor, and everybody can answer. We can start with Deneen, and then go Rachel, and then go Kendra. How can we foster healthy conversations and communication around the LGBTQIA plus community, and in terms of religion and families and mental health and our culture? I feel like Black culture and a lot of cultures that have a very, very deep roots in religion, right? I feel like a lot of those cultures have a hard time with pride, with LGBTQIA plus, and a lot of that can lead to a lot of suicide ideation. How can we close that gap? How can we start those conversations? What's a safe way to do it? What's a safe way to start? And if any of you guys have any advices from like experience or something you've done, we'd love to hear it. I'll start with Rachel, Deneen, and then we'll go with Kendra.
Okay. Wow, that's such a loaded question.
I
It's so
know. I feel like all my questions are
it's
like big and heavy.
they're big, but they need to be asked, right? They need to be spoken out loud. That's one of the things I, sometimes I people have said I'm kind of a little direct when it comes to my mental health care. I haven't had the luxury of taking a back seat in my personal care, because when I do that, things don't go as planned, right? Speak and be the way it is now. And the queer community, right, um, deserves the respect that all of us deserve at the same time. And I believe that it's so difficult at times because acceptance and understanding and conversations need to happen, but there are not a lot of spaces where people like us can go and say, this is who I am, and feel comfortable and feel safe in that environment. You know, there are places of faith that are accepting, but we need to make it a little more widespread, right? My theory is to pull a band-aid off, put it out there, say it, say what's ailing us, and don't be afraid of the fact that some of us feel so alone sometimes. We're not alone. Sometimes when someone else hears your voice, they heard their voice at the same time. It's just that we don't have those conversations together. I'd like to be able to facilitate space where we start having those conversations together. Um, there's I thought you were going to go to Deneen first, and then you came to me, and then I
I
was like,
did. You know what? I mixed up the order in my head, and I'm sorry. But
"It's okay." Um, we're free flowing tonight. We're free
we
flowing.
are free
We're
flowing.
having,
We're free flowing.
as the empowered pause will be, right? We're
Yes.
not going to have such a rigid space where people will feel uncomfortable. I want our speakers to be able to speak, and our listeners to be able to listen with a humble heart and with an open heart, and to say, you know what, I may not understand totally everything, but you're still seen, you're still heard. I have you. And it's a teaching moment as well for me. Um, when you get people who have not experienced any mental health crises or don't know anyone who has been in those types of spaces, we just don't know, because it's not a conversation that comes up on a regular basis for them. But if they actually are put in spaces and we make it more common to say, you know what, we have the Empowered Pause 7:15 every Wednesday. We're just talking about real life events and real life things and our actual realities, not what should be or what could be, but right now. Let's talk about what we're doing right now so we can actually get to the future. So, yeah, it was a lot. Um,
That's perfect.
but you can come back to me when I get my notes together.
That was perfect.
Thank you, Rachel. Deneen.
You're welcome.
So, what I heard, and I want to definitely point out, having that conversation. That's the one thing that's really key. It's have the conversation. Have the conversation with yourself. Have the conversation with your family members. Have the conversation with someone who is from the LGBTQ community. And if you are a person of faith, there are faith communities that are open and affirming. NBC just featured a series that talked about churches and faith communities that are open and affirming. Find a church or community that's open and affirming. I work at a church that is open and affirming, and we even have drag church, which is
That sounds like
allowing
so much fun. I want to go.
someone to just really be your authentic self, whatever that looks like. And so it's about having that conversation. There are organizations that have allyship training that really talk about how can you support someone who is part of the LGBTQ community. It's about changing language, changing focus, changing mindsets, because sometimes you might think that you are open and affirming, but what you say to and about people is not. And
Mhm.
so it's really about having that conversation and finding those resources that exist that can support you and support your curiosity about it. Being, allyship is a thing that is happening everywhere. People are trying to learn how to be supportive and aware and open.
Mhm.
So that's what I'd have to say. It's about conversation and educating yourself.
Exactly.
Thank you, Deneen. Kendra.
I mean, I'm going to echo everything Deneen and Rachel has said. I mean, I don't feel like I have anything to add, but I'm going to try my best. I hope you all are digging into your pockets so they can meet their goal of raising 25K tonight because it matters. I want to lift up Nigel's story, a 15-year-old. I'm going to read a brief excerpt from an article that I came across that was written on June 9th of this year. Its title is Son Suicide Spurs Mother's Mission to Combat LGBTQ plus Bullying. This brief excerpt says, home was a loving and supportive place for Nigel, but his mother says everything changed once he got to Huntsville High School. There, he faced a very different reality where he was often the target of homophobic harassment that took a great toll on his mental health, affecting his usually upbeat demeanor. Shelby said she knew her son was struggling with depression and anxiety, but at the time was unaware that Nigel was being bullied. Nigel began seeing a therapist and was eventually prescribed medication, Shelby said. We were dealing with it the best way we knew how. Unfortunately, however, the pressure to be normal, put in quotes, became too much for him to bear. And on April 18, 2019, this 15-year-old completed suicide, who was a Black child who was full of light. And as a same gender loving person, it's important, as Deneen stated, to have those conversations and to educate yourself. And not only to have those conversations and educate yourself around the language within community of LGBTQ, but also as it relates to your religious understanding and theological beliefs, because a lot of bullying and vitriol as it relates to LGBTQ folks are stemming from what people have been taught in their ecclesial communities. And so it's really important, if you are involved in the faith community and you have a pastor that is clear about the historical context behind the Bible, that they lift up those clobber passages that are typically used to ostracize LGBTQ folks and really bring people in to conversation. And I love all the churches that are opening and affirming in our country. I'm thinking about so many churches and organizations that people can tap into right now as it relates to the LGBTQ community. One of them is Many Voices. Many Voices is a Christian based organization that does a lot of advocacy work for men and women in the transgender community, for lesbians, for bisexuals, and queer folks. And it is an amazing institution. I think about Bishop Yvette Flanders' organization, and so many others. It is important for us to be able to not only be open. I found that a lot of churches say they're opening and affirming, but they're really
Right.
open, right? Affirming to me not only looks like having opportunities for queer people to come and gather, but it looks like including them in the ethos of your faith community. So that
Right.
means if I am leading a premarital guidance counseling group, I'm going to make sure that there are examples of same gender loving relationships in the curriculum. If I am engaging and I am marrying folks, I'm gonna make sure I'm marrying LGBTQ folks too. That is what I mean when I say affirming. There
Mm-hmm.
can often be what Nikki Young, a scholar, refers to as hypervisibility and visibility,
Mm-hmm.
where you LGBT folks are visible in the community, but not invited to be integrated in the community.
Yes.
Which is a whole, and I'm not just talking about letting them serve as an usher or letting them,
Yes.
which is wonderful and great. I'm talking about really integrating them into the experience of the community. So I'll stop there.
I just wanted to touch a little bit on what you just said, because there is this sense of, well, we don't turn anyone away. And, there is this sense of, well, I don't condone bullying. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, because, you know, I am a grandmother and let's just say I'm a grandmother and I can, I'm not trying to be mean to anyone or bully anyone and everyone's welcome and I'm aware that, my nephew might be gay, but I'm still not, it's like you're invited to the cookout, but you know what I'm saying? I had a friend who was gay who his mom wouldn't let his partner come to Thanksgiving, but he had been with his partner for like 8 years. Meanwhile, her other son, who was straight, has like a different girl at Thanksgiving every year. And it's like, if all sins are equal, let's just say being gay is a sin. If all sins are equal, what's going on here? Why is that okay, but that's not? You know what I'm saying? So there's like social implications to it that don't make sense when you really put the Bible next to it. So I guess my follow up question for you, Kendra, is those tough conversations with auntie so and so and cousin so and so, and as we enter the summer and we enter family reunion season, right? And all of these things that, and we're talking about mental health, and you want to see your family because you love them, but they say I, as a cisgendered straight woman, find some of the things that my family says problematic. I really do, and it's not the same polarizing because I'm acceptable, but it still feels like, man, I really wish you didn't say that because now I feel differently about you. Um, what I guess tips, tricks, hacks, like how do you handle that?
Tips, tricks, and hacks. Is that what you said? I'm going to use that, Kathleen, because I like it. I like it. Um, it's a great question, and I speak from my wisdom as a 40-year-old woman, not from my angst as the 20-year-old Kendra when I offer this advice. I remember when I finally accepted myself fully, as a same gender loving person, as a queer person, as a lesbian. It was a lot of angst from the people who love me about the nature of my soul and where it was going, about my relationship with God, right? So
Okay.
by the time I had this conversation, I had to be fortified enough within myself to be clear that they might walk away and to be okay with people leaving.
Mm,
People left, which is very hard.
very
It was
hard.
very difficult. And I recognized that those people that left, they left some room and some space for other people to come in who affirmed me, who saw me, who valued me. And my 20-year-old self was very angry about where people were in their own evolutionary journey of understanding and affirming me. And I had to recognize that it took me 20 plus years to accept myself.
Mm,
It may take my family just as long.
sure.
Right? That's two. Understanding that people's processes are their processes. Also, understanding that you don't have to deal with oppressive language within your family system. So you can check it as it comes and be prepared for, again, for people to leave. You don't have to press your way into spaces that don't welcome you.
Mm,
Don't have to. And that is a hard lesson that I've had to learn. I've had to learn that sometimes I just have to create and curate my own tables, my own open and affirming spaces. And so that's what I've done through creating my own institution. But this is a journey, and you don't. It's not about getting it right. It is about learning how to love yourself even more, despite some of the messages that LGBTQ folks still receive about who they are and who they are not. And I
mm,
believe this is where one's understanding of the God that they believe in comes into play when we talk about faith and what that means. To know that despite what other people may be saying about you, that you can still have a particular belief that names who you are and centers you in a way that other people can't.
mm.
So those are some of the lessons that I have learned along my journey, and I've also recognized that the more that I have stepped into who I am fully, I watch my mom, my dad, who I'm not going to say what they said initially when I came out, but who had a difficult time. But I
Sure.
watched my dad participate and my mom participate in a documentary film that I'm creating called "A Love Supreme: Black Queer and Christian in the South" with my film partner Katina Parker. And so it's possible for families to come aboard, and that's what I want people to see in this documentary film. That not all families are filled with angst and isolation and
Right.
separation. There are some families who are putting their actions to what they say they believe about God and about love. And so I am grateful that there are other families that can be a model for how how parents of LGBTQ people can support us along our journeys.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you for sharing that.
You
Give them
know,
time, be
yeah.
willing to walk away, make
Yeah.
your own table. Those are good tips, tricks, and hacks. They're right
I like that. You better do the three.
Yeah.
there.
You quick with it, Kathleen.
I write a lot of
That's
blogs.
why we love her.
Yeah.
I think that applies, that applies to every aspect of life, right? So,
Mm,
people who are
good point.
struggling with general bullying, who are struggling with identity and security, we have to be able to realize that we don't have to stay in those environments,
Exactly.
regardless of what your identity is. It may not be LGBTQ. It might be that you want to be an artist and your parents want you to be a lawyer, or it can be a plethora of things. But exactly what Kendra said, like, you don't have to be in those spaces, and you can create family, right? It's not always going to be the family that birthed you or that you genetically look like, but you can create family.
Yeah.
And I think as a society we have to learn that family looks different, just the way we all look different, we behave different. It's all different, and sometimes we have to create that when we're recreating ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to create the family that we surround ourselves with as
Mm,
well. So it what Kendra said applies to just any aspect of our lives,
mm,
and just the building our self-esteem and our identities. It
mm.
applies for anything.
Agreed. Agreed.
Definitely agree.
Thank you. Um, if you're just joining us, we are raising $25,000 tonight. I went ahead and gave my donation. I want you guys to follow suit. You can give donations at speaksuicideprevention.org tonight or for the rest of the month. We are accepting donations. We are trying to build a fund called the Speak Now Support Fund. And what that support fund will do, it'll be an emergency funds for anyone with suicide ideation, just helping them out any way they might need. This could be rent money, getting them a cell phone, a Metro card, whatever they might need. So that's one of the initiatives that we're creating. And we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Also, we will be here not as long because we're launching tonight, but we will be here for about 15 to 20 minutes every Wednesday at 7:15 for all speakers and listeners. We want you to feel like you have a comfortable space to discuss suicide prevention, suicide ideation, and whatever else you need. Okay. Our next question. Let's see here. Um, Hold on, I think I lost it. Oh, yes, that's my question. Okay, sorry. So tonight, as I just said, we are launching the Empowered Pause, which will be happening here every week. And Rachel, I just wanted to unpack with you, Rachel and Denise, you both can answer this question. In our grind culture, how is taking a pause empowering?
I can go first. Um, Learning how to say no to certain things and to just stop and give yourself a moment can be one of the biggest things you can do for yourself. Um, I come from a background of having to learn how to say no and having to learn how to say, okay, as much as I want to do, I might need to slow down just a bit because I need a minute. I need 10 minutes. I might need an hour. So let me make those calls later because this is what I need to do for my well being. Our culture tells us we got to work, we got to work, we got to work, we got to play hard, work hard, run, run, run all the time. Everywhere we're going in this city, it's top speed. We
And
rush to the red light.
generally, black culture work twice as hard.
We work
Just
twice as hard.
accept that. You know.
Exactly. And we just accept it. We just say, oh, okay, that's how it has to be. It does not have to be this way. I do not subscribe to working myself to death and not enjoying the beautiful life that we are blessed with. The experience, this human experience, is more than just accumulation of hours and accumulation of things. It's spending time with, like the name said, your family, the family that you created, the people who are going to affirm you, who are going to support you, who are going to love you. So taking that pause is more than just I don't want to be bothered. I'm doing this for myself, and it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes. We can sit on our phones for 10 minutes and do everything else that it may not be for us. Why not take 10 minutes and say, you know what? I'm going to listen to something that's calming. I'm going to step out of the grind because that's what we're doing. We're grinding, but we're grinding ourselves into the ground. And we have to at times. We need money. We got to survive. We got to work, but healthy work is a better way to do it for me. Um, and it's a process of getting to that place. And the empowered pause, I believe, will create healthy habits for people. Just to say, you know what, I know they're there 7:15 every Wednesday. I'm gonna jump on, just like Kendra has her the movement Monday.
Oh
I
yeah.
make it my business. It's on my schedule. I need that. So, there are things and there are people and places that we can utilize. And it doesn't have to be something that's so big where it's a production. Sometimes you just want to sit outside on the bench next to the tree and give
Amen.
yourself that gift. So that's why I think um, the empowered pause is so empowering. It's breaking down the structure of you have to. We don't have to do anything really except breathe. I was told we have to breathe, we have to eat, and we have to sleep, and maybe pay taxes because we can't get around
Right.
that.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, that's why I feel it's so necessary to take back our time, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 2 minutes, and you walk to the corner and walk back. It may be just leaving one room and re-entering that room in a different mind space.
Hmm.
That can shift your whole moment, that whole energy field. So yeah, that's the empowered voice. That's why we're here.
Thank you, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Deneen.
Yeah, that pause looks like being able to come into a space where you can focus on you, whether it's doing something that centers you, thinking different thoughts, whether it's creating space for an activity that you have put aside in taking care of other people. Um, we we have a society that's dealing with trauma and generational trauma and genetic trauma, like it's all engaging and working through all of our lives, yet we don't deal with it. So
Mm,
that pause says not just to do something positive, but let's take a quick moment to tap into what's going on.
yeah.
What do you need to scream 5 minutes about? What do you need to leave out of your system and let it pour out? It might be a scream. It might be a go hug somebody. It might be whatever it is. But we've got to start dealing with these issues that we have and
Mm,
create ways that we can deal with it that don't require making an appointment to sit and talk with someone. Like that self healing, um, giving people those tools to be able to say, "Hey, it's okay to go in your bathroom and scream when the shower's on high." Like do that for 5 minutes. It's okay for you to hug yourself or to ask for a hug or to to smile and speak to someone when we're in at least in New York, we don't speak to one another, right?
mm,
So creating those ways for people to actually engage in something different and to actually tap into what's going on. Sometimes we're not heard. We'll spend hours, years, weeks dealing with everybody else, helping everybody else, and never be able to say, hey, I didn't like the way this person spoke to me. And I'm still thinking about it a week later.
Right.
mm,
Right.
You need somebody to talk to about that. You might just need to do something to get that out. And so
yeah.
that pause is creating those opportunities to consider what you can do to release some of that tension.
I love that. I love that. And Kendra, I'm going to ask you to just to piggyback on that with a separate question. How do you deal with the withdrawal of letting go of grind culture? That's like a
Ooh.
personal trauma for Kathleen. Since I am
Ooh.
a full supporter of grind culture. Well, I'm a recovering addict from grind culture, and so how do you deal with that withdrawal? Sometimes there is. I thought it was just me, but in talking to other grind addicts, there is anxiety when you ask me to pause. There is stress when you're like, okay, you're going to set up some hours for yourself in the morning. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. You know, how do you deal so that self care isn't an additional stress?
Yeah. That's a big question. You got all these good and big questions, Kathleen. And my first response is how do you resist grind culture? Is to do what Deneen and Rachel have talked about, is creating an opportunity to pause so you can access your power and understand that your power is connected to productivity. Your power is connected to your ability to be able to understand yourself, to have new insights, greater awarenesses that support you in your holistic wellness.
Mm,
Um, and for me, as someone who transitioned from a particular type of grind culture, working for an institution to working for myself, I
mm,
had to lose the fear. Because really, what happens, particularly for entrepreneurs who have shifted out of the institution, is that you develop a greater sense of fear about where is the money going to come from. That's what grind culture is really attached to, our thoughts around how we create money and abundance and profitability. I have recognized that my generation of income does not come from me grinding and being exhausted. It
mm,
comes from me being able to say yes to opportunities that are in alignment with what I desire to do and be in the world, as opposed to taking whatever comes just so I can have some money.
yes.
Also, I resist grind culture by understanding that resting is just as productive as doing. And when
Mm,
we can understand that resting is not lazy, resting is a necessity for us to be able to do the things that we believe have been laid on our hearts and minds to actually do. So, resting is not lazy, resting is a necessity, resting is a part of what it means to be productive. That's why I love the platform, the NAP Ministry. If you're
mm,
not familiar with the NAP Ministry, go check it out on all social media platforms because it's important to rest, particularly for Black folks and
ooh,
people of color who have overworked ourselves because we are experiencing so much compounded trauma and we've normalized a lot of it. Some of our overworking is a trauma response to what we've encountered in our day to day living experiences. So when we are able to take a pause to access our power, we recognize that some of the ways that we've been engaging in grind culture is a product of our trauma and
mm,
not a product of for productivity. So I'll
mm.
end it there. I feel like that was a long answer.
You preached on that one. You look. If you are not a pastor at the Nat Ministry, you sure just preached like you were. Like I felt that in your shondo. I did.
I felt it revving up. I said, let me take a pause right now.
I'm here for it.
No, you cut me to the quick at the first thing you said, which is your power is not connected to your productivity. I'm like, it's not.
Right,
I
right,
think we have such, especially as Black women, man, so much of our, and I'm an entrepreneur too, so much of our identity is based in what I can produce, what I can
Mhm.
do, what I can put out, what I can, I mean, even down to procreation, what I can put out
right.
is definitely, I gotta I'm gonna be sitting on that for the next couple days. What?
Hmm.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure that's where my power lies. That's deep. I heard
Mhm.
the rest of what you said, but I could have walked out on the first thing. I just call me out.
Well,
Woo.
believe me, you're not alone. I had the same struggle
Absolutely.
with myself when it was first said to me. And I'm like, what do you mean? Who are you talking to? I'm like, no, I'm corporate
Right.
star. I have to work. I have to. I have to. I have to.
That's who
And
I
they
am.
kept
It's
asking
who I
me,
am. Yes.
why do you have to do it? And I'm like, well, because that's what I do. That's who I am. It's what I, but I had to realize that was not who I am. That's just what I did.
Mm,
I am me.
yeah.
And I always am going to be me in every situation I go into, whether it be corporate, whether it be entrepreneurship, whether it be a faith community. Once you realize, well, in my case, once I realized exactly who I am and that work did not define me, but I defined the work, then it became, oh, so I affect change where I go. So, and just as Kendra mentioned to me probably a week ago, um, you create your space.
Yeah.
You create those avenues because we all are divinely and uniquely made. We all have unique gifts. We write this, they like us to believe that we don't, but each of us are beautifully, uniquely made. There's a gift inside each one of us, which is why I decided to start Speak.
Mm,
If we're born, and if,
Yeah.
you know, without complications and other things that happen in nature, but 9 times out of 10, you deserve to be here. You deserve a chance at that dream that was dropped inside of you the moment you touched this planet, regardless of what
Mhm.
religious beliefs you have or whatever um, beliefs you have about science. We all came from somewhere. It
yeah.
doesn't matter where we came from, but we do all have a seed in us that can grow
Yeah.
if it's nurtured,
Yeah.
and it has space to be nurtured and space to grow and room to be rooted and find community and spaces and places where we actually can do all of that work together.
I
So
love
yeah.
it. I love it. Well, I
Mhm.
felt empowered in this pause tonight. I really did. I felt empowered and challenged, and Kendra kind of hurt my feelings at the end. Thank you. Thank you. We are going to wrap. It is 8 o'clock. I'd like to invite you guys to come back next week because we will continue to have our empowered pauses, not on this level. This was a panel discussion to launch our first one, but we will be having empowered pauses every week, a space where you can come and talk and connect. I am going to plug our 25 $25,000 fundraiser that we'll be doing for the rest of the month. Go to speaksuicideprevention.org where you can make a donation. Speaksuicideprevention.org. And if you have any additional questions, please hit us up. You can join our mailing list as well. Hit us up on social media, and we are so excited to launch this amazing program. Any final thoughts from our amazing panel?
It's
I just
it's
like to say, oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Kate.
was going to say it's not many organizations like Speak. Speak is very unique in terms of how they are creating spaces for people to feel welcomed and understood, and that is worth your giving. I have given, and so I'm inviting everybody else to give too.
Thank you. Thank you. I just like to say thank you to each of you ladies who are here tonight with me and making this happen, being supportive in this venture, and just believing in the fact that Speak is a space and a place where we can actually affect change. Again, we are fundraising all month. The funds will definitely go to necessary causes, operation expenses, definitely our emergency fund where we actually reach out to people or people who, if they need whatever, get them to a safe space, transportation, you name it. We've actually done all of that so far. So, and just tools to have our speakers feel part of the journey, centered in their space while they're with us. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time. I appreciate all of you for watching.
Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Happy Pride, everyone. And speak soon.
Take
Bye.
care.